Hi everybody, welcome to week one of Web Server Application Development. My name is Kevin Gantos. I am a part-time adjunct instructor for UC. My full-time job is Solutions Engineer for Learn21, a nonprofit here in Cincinnati. We work with educational institutions, specifically in the K-12 space, and help provide them with IT and professional development. I have about 16 years of experience in web development and IT support, 13 years experience in ASP.NET and C# development, 12 years SQL Server management and SQL development, and about 3.5 years of experience in ASP.NET MVC. So I've been doing this for a little bit of time. I actually graduated from this IT program back in 2006 and worked in IT even prior to uh, being in this program. So I've worked in IT pretty much my entire career. I just wanted this first introduction video to be just that. Talk about introductions, get you familiar with the content and expectations of the course, as well as kind of what we're going to be doing in just this first week. The first week is kind of slow paced. It's going to be a lot of making sure that you're getting yourself set up and ready and you have the tools and resources that you need, as well as getting you familiar with the course and providing you the information and the mindset that I would expect you to have taking this course. So in terms of course expectations, if you've had courses with me in the past, you know that I've tend to work in more of a project mode. This term in particular, I'm going to be taking a very project heavy perspective. So what that means to everyone in general is that this course is project driven. We're going to be introducing a project within the second or third week of the course, and that project and the completion of that project will be paced out through the rest of the lectures. So as we learn a topic in a lecture, my expectation is for you to take that topic or concept and apply it to your project. So essentially what you'll be learning each week in lecture is the steps that you need to take in completing the final project for the course. I'm doing that for a few reasons. First reason is I want to ensure that people are familiar and comfortable with the content, and I want to give you ample opportunity to practice. In providing you with that opportunity, I'm expecting to hear feedback from you as well. So my expectation from you is that if you're working through a problem, you're experiencing difficulty, I want you to come to me, and I'll talk a little bit more about how you do that, but I want you to come to me with that problem because it's highly likely that you're not the only person experiencing that problem, or it may just simply be a miscommunication on my part, and trying to kind of clarify or approach a problem in a different way often helps in understanding the problem and then resolving and working through it. Just in terms of expectations for the course, we have a few goals slash expectations. First goal is that you'll be able to translate your C# experience into the web world. And the prerequisite for this course is contemporary programming, which is C#. So I am assuming that by being in this course that you've already taken that course and completed it. We're wanting to take that ability of taking a C# application and writing it, and we want to take that and move it into the web. We want to be able to create the Facebook type apps, the Amazon type web applications, Google type web applications, and be able to do that utilizing C#. Along the way, we'll be learning a lot about the web technologies that really drive those pieces of innovation and get a better perspective of how we can be a part of that utilizing our C# and .NET experience. Uh, there's an expectation here that you have experience with SQL Server or Microsoft SQL, and that you can actually type SQL statements. We'll be utilizing Microsoft SQL Server through this, and the goal is that you will be able to utilize Microsoft SQL Server with the Entity Framework. The Entity Framework is a ORM, or Object Relational Mapper, that we'll be covering in detail throughout the weeks, and we'll be talking about that and how you utilize that in kind of kickstarting or jumpstarting your application and providing you with a little bit more functionality and flexibility. Finally, in terms of expectations, I'm assuming that you have knowledge in HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. I'm looking for a fairly good level of competency here. I don't want to have to address things like how do I do an anchor tag or how do I bold some text. If you have any questions about things like that, I will direct you to w3schools.org. Um, there is an entire catalog of lectures and tutorials that will take you through all of the different HTML markups, JavaScript, CSS. There's actually even resources for ASP.NET on there as well. But that would be the place that you would want to go to get kind of a refresher on that content. That also kind of drives me into my next step, which is my coding recommendations or course recommendations. The first one is that you should be coding every day. As we ramp up into this course, we're going to be doing not huge chunks of work every week, but there is an expectation that you'll be able to tackle a problem on a weekly basis. For some of you who are very comfortable with programming, some of the projects you may be able to tackle them over the course of an evening or a day. Some of you, it may take you all week. And as we get further and further into the course, there will be more complexity, which will require more dedicated time. One of the questions that I ask in the student survey is how many additional courses are you taking alongside this one? And the reason I ask that question is so that I can gain an understanding of what kind of workload on average the class has. So that way I can gauge how much to give you every week and ensure that I'm not overloading you and having too high expectations. But at the same time, please be fair, and I want to ensure that I'm giving you adequate work so that you're able to get as much out of the course as possible. When it comes to questions that you have or struggles that you run into, my recommendation is always to Google it, use Google. If you run into a compiler error or a runtime error, your first line of defense is always to copy it, paste it into Google, and do a search. 9 times out of 10, that search result will probably direct you to a site called Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is a programmer's forum, and they will provide you with the information. You'll see people have posted similar questions, and people then will respond back and they can rate and vote on correct answers. In doing that, the reason I recommend it is that you're going to be doing a few things. One, you're going to gain experience just by doing the research on your own, and it's self-paced learning, which is always important, especially within the IT field. You want to be able to learn on your own. Second, it provides you with an opportunity to really start to understand the subculture and the terminology that is used within the .NET development environment. And that's equally important because as you go through and you start to understand the terminology and you start to get a grasp of the subculture and the resources that are available to you, that will help make your troubleshooting easier. You'll be able to ask the right questions, you'll be able to use the right terms, you'll be able to kind of infer certain things as you continue to work through and troubleshoot things. So my best recommendation would be that you would need to continue to code every day and that you would also troubleshoot your problems yourself the best you can. Now when I say that, that's kind of vague and unwieldy. To kind of give you some metrics about when you should work toward troubleshooting a problem on your own versus kind of just bringing it to one of these other resources. I would recommend, depending on the scale of the problem, and that has to do with complexity, if you're running into a problem early on, I would probably spend no more than 24 hours on that problem on your own. If within 24 hours you can't come to a solution on your own, or come to a solution by asking a friend, come to me with it. I don't want you to spend days and days trying to problem solve through something and then end up just getting behind. I've seen that happen in prior classes, and I've applauded people for their effort in trying to solve problems on their own, but sometimes it's just easier to ask. But I think going through that process of at least trying it on your own is an honorable expectation. Um, just to give you an example of a more complex scenario that took me, it took me about a week to actually problem solve. Was as I was originally learning the entity framework. The framework, the entity framework, has become out of this kind of a think group within Microsoft, and with the way that it's developed and evolved, it's been very organic, and the amount of true documentation that you would expect has been, putting it politely, spotty at times. Because of that, it's relied heavily on Stack Overflow and the community to be able to actually support the product and provide feedback. Um, and through using those channels, additional PD resources, and just investing time on my own, it took me about a week's worth of R&D to go through and research a problem, do some development, problem solve through some additional issues back and forth before I was able to actually overcome the problems that I was having with my code. Now, those problems weren't necessarily compiler problems, those problems weren't even runtime problems. They were actually just functionality issues where the program wasn't running the way that I wanted it to or the way that I expected it to. And I learned a lot over that week. I feel very comfortable with the Unity framework now, especially after that week of just investing myself. And when I talk about spending a week on it, it was pretty much a 6 to 8 hour day every day, researching and coding and trying to finally overcome that hurdle that was that challenge for me. So sometimes those are realistic things, and being quite honest, you'll end up probably investing more time troubleshooting a problem than you will be actually writing code. So that's something to consider as well. When you think about how long does it take for me to write this program, the writing of the program itself may only end up being a fraction of the time that's actually invested in doing the development. A majority of your time will probably end up being around problem solving issues, whether they be technical in nature or just problem solving around how do I provide this experience that I want through my application. So in terms of things to use, Google, Stack Overflow, those are two big ones. MSDN, if you're looking for documentation from Microsoft about the .NET framework or component of the .NET framework, MSDN is obviously always a good choice. Ask your friends, ask your peers, ask people who have maybe taken this course previously, ask anybody, ask me. Again, I want to be a resource to you, um, but I think it's really about getting a support community for yourself. So if you're pretty much relying on, I come to class, I listen to the lecture, I do what the teacher told me to do, um, I'm hoping to try to break you of that. Then the last point I make is the internet as a whole, because there are resources out there beyond the ones listed here that can be helpful to you, that can be a resource. There's many people who have terrific blog posts where they dig deep into a concept or a topic because they ended up having those same questions as you were having, and they ended up working through them and solving those problems, and their form of documentation is to write a blog. They blog about what was my challenge, how did I overcome my challenge, and what did I learn during that challenge. So I recommend also looking just to add blog posts and spending some time doing some real research around the problem you're having and the problem, or the solution rather, that they came up with to resolve that problem. So to kind of just wrap up this introduction video, week one expectations, review the syllabus, go through, read it, make sure that there aren't any questions or any unclarified points within the syllabus that you may have. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Again, the course setup, logging into Blackboard, look at the Blackboard course itself. Are there any things that you're expecting to see that you're not, things that you're not certain about? Please review that. Make sure that you have an installation of Visual Studio 2013. Either that or obtain access to the virtual labs. And if you're not familiar with the virtual labs but you're interested in using them, reach out to me and I can provide you with some information about the labs and things to consider. Visual Studio 2013 is my recommended installation. This course we're covering ASP.NET MVC 4/5. And the reason it's 4/5 is that our textbook focuses on 4, but Visual Studio 2013 is the newest version of Visual Studio, which is available for download, and 2013 can actually support MVC 4 and MVC 5. So because this is IT, I prefer to stay on the bleeding edge, so I'd rather try to lean more toward the MVC 5 and using Visual Studio 2013, but I also need to be flexible and accommodate. So that will be the IDE that we'll be using. To install that, there are links available within Blackboard. If you go under the syllabus section, there's a link to the Microsoft UC software agreement. From there, you can log in and download any number of Microsoft softwares. But Visual Studio 2013 will need to be installed, and when you do that installation, also be sure that you install the web developer tools, and you install Microsoft SQL Server Express and any of the data access components that come along with that as well. You'll need access to the textbook, whether that's physical or online. Again, under the syllabus section of the Blackboard course, you'll see that there are 2 links. This textbook is available through Safari Books Online. Safari Books Online is only freely accessible from within the UC network, so those 2 different links will provide you different levels of access. If you're on UC's network, it takes you directly to Safari Books. If you're off UC's network, I have a link there that actually takes you through the UC Library proxy, and that proxy will then connect you out to the textbook to Safari Books. I want you to also complete the student survey that's posted under the week 1 module, and then also complete your student introduction discussion board post, and that post can be pretty much similar to what my first slide was. Just tell about yourself, tell a little bit about if you have a position maybe on a co-op or anything like that, years of experience, and just talk about your goals personally and professionally. Okay. There is one additional video that you'll want to follow along with after this, which will just kind of talk about the HTTP process at a glance and start to evaluate what that process looks like. Again, this is just introductory content. Some of this should actually be familiar to you from your website or web development course previously, where you learned HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, so this is just kind of a refresher. I hope everyone enjoys the course, and look forward to working with you this term.